Hi, so my name is Fred Lusch. I'm a senior lecturer at Griffith University and I'm a senior research fellow here at the Smart Water Research Centre. My main field of research is the application of bioanalytical tools to water quality assessment, and this is where we take sort of a top-down approach to pollutant assessment, where we look at the effect these pollutants might have on exposed organisms rather than trying to identify them by their chemical structure. So bioanalytical tools is where we use cells, whole animal or whole human cells, and we expose these cells to water extracts or water, plain water, and we look at how these cells respond to whatever was in that water. So if you've got, say for example, cancer-causing compounds, we look at cells that indicate cancer development. If we look at chemicals that can break DNA, for example, we look at DNA damage. So we look at these modes of action, it's called. So bioanalytical tools allow us to look at compounds by modes of action, by their toxicity, rather than the old method, which is to try to identify chemicals one by one. Now the advantage and how these tools are useful is that they really allow us to look at the mixture toxicity. So when you look at our current guidelines for drinking water or surface water, they're all set for individual chemicals. So you've got chemical A should not exceed this level, chemical B should not exceed this level, and so on to chemical XXZY. And so the advantage of the in vitro assays or bioanalytical tools is that they allow us to look at all of these chemicals and the ones that we don't know about in one relatively simple measure. I think the advantage of this approach, this bioanalytical approach, is for pretty much all of the parties involved. I mean, for the regulators, it helps in trying to really start addressing this issue that they're very aware of hey, we've got guidelines for such and such chemical, what about the ones we don't have a guideline for? Or what about mixture toxicity when we're dealing with a whole bunch of complex samples with many different compounds? How do we get our head around that? So that's for the regulator. For the industry, I think it's really, it's certainly beyond regulation. So this isn't something that an industry would have to measure and that's what the guideline says and things like that. It's really looking beyond regulation. And it's really looking at what's the next wave. What sort of other concern might you have with the water quality? Those bioassays really allow us to identify emerging contaminants. And so for the industry, it's useful for that. On a research perspective, it's a very active field. So what's really nice about Smart Water Research Centre for me is twofold. One is the people who are here. So you've got this sort of combined expertise. You can just walk into someone's office and go, look, my expertise is organic compounds. I don't really know much about microorganisms, for example, but I can walk into someone else's office and go, look, do these concepts make any sense in terms of removal of microorganisms as well? And you can start getting this sort of multidisciplinary approach to questions that are related to water quality. The other thing, of course, is the equipment. We've got a very large array of equipment in the building that are fantastic to play with, and there are toys. So that access is really rare. For me. Generally you walk into a lab and it's something like an old library that's been refurbished. This is a state-of-the-art, designed for that purpose lab, so it's really enjoyable to work here. But I'm a man of simple tastes. My favorite equipment here is this one. It's really our workhorse for us. It's a microplate reader. It allows you to measure absorbance, luminescence and fluorescence on a 96 or now a 384 well plate, and we use it for for every single one of our cell-based assays, we use this machine as the machine we measure. So it hasn't broken down yet, and we hope it never will.
My name is Professor Roger Tomlinson. I'm the Director of the Griffith Centre for Coastal Management. The Centre is a partnership with the Gold Coast City Council, looking at a whole range of issues related to coastal management, primarily on the Gold Coast, but anywhere where there's urban development on our coastline. Smart Water Research Centre, because of its integrated nature, the fact that it has a number of industry and university partners, and a very broad range of skill sets that are available through the Smart Water Research, it means that a group such as mine, which is primarily interested in the physical processes they're undertaking, can integrate with teams doing water quality issues, toxicology issues, and get a far more effective integrated solution to problems. The Centre for Coastal Management is primarily about issues related to the management of our beaches and our waterways. So we're here at the moment at the Broadwater, and there are a lot of issues that interface with what Smart Water does in terms of the discharge of recycled water into our estuaries and our oceans, the management of stormwater, which results in obviously into flows into our broadwater and our estuaries. And so we look at the physical processes that are going on in these locations and how infrastructure and strategies can be designed to minimise impact. Most of the research that the Centre for Coastal Management undertakes in this area is for local government, and in particular we've done a number of studies for Gold Coast Water, looking at the discharge of effluent into the recycled water into the seaway. We've looked at works for Gold Coast City Council catchment management in terms of environmental inventories and the design of stormwater management strategies. If we look at the challenges facing environments such as this, whether it's looking at our waterways, our estuaries or our open oceans, I think that the challenges for the future really relate to climate change and to the impacts that the combination of impacts of things such as rising sea levels and changes to our environments, particularly where we've got high residential populations such as here on the Gold Coast, which are just increasing all the time. So it's getting that balance between increased development and these sorts of impacts under control are the key issues.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Higgins. I'm the coordinator for the Scientific Services section of Gold Coast Water, which is part of Gold Coast City Council. The Scientific Services section was established in 1972 and for many years operated from laboratories that were built in various sewage treatment plants. But by the early 2000s it was obvious that we were becoming overcrowded and the laboratories weren't suited being located at sewage treatment plant sites. So Gold Coast City Council was looking for a new location. We were able to join with Griffith University in building a joint building which would suit both research purposes but also give us a new laboratory. And the council was interested because they also wanted us to establish a knowledge centre on the Gold. Well, one of the highlights, of course, for us was having a new purpose-designed laboratory which fits us like a glove and works really, really well for us, which was a great highlight. But with respect to the collaboration, it's in its formative stages yet, but we can already see the benefit of having research people and industry people in the same building. It's early days yet, but we already have several projects in process that are a combination of the expertise from both parties, with Gold Coast Water staff identifying what the industry issues are, and with the research people participating in the projects to come up with solutions to these problems. We are in the process now of developing 4 rapid methods which we hope to be able to offer to the water industry, and so we're wanting to set up a rapid BOD method. We're looking at establishing a rapid enterococci method using qPCR testing, and we're establishing ability to look for markers in environmental water that will indicate whether there's sewage contamination and what type of contamination it is. And finally, we're hoping to establish a facility to do cryptosporidium and Giardia testing at this location.
Steve Melvin. I'm a postdoc at Central Queensland University and working on part of the multidisciplinary ponds project. So I'm based out of Smart Water here at Griffith Uni. So the goal of the project is to study maturation ponds. Maturation ponds are used extensively all over the world. There's probably around 1,000 in Australia, and some of the major cities still use them to treat domestic water. Places like Darwin, Adelaide, Melbourne, they all still rely on these for treatment of their major domestic water supplies. So the purpose of the project is to sort of look at what features, what characteristics and design features lead to the most optimal treatment. So our project has hydrodynamic modelers. I myself am an ecotoxicologist. We have a human health risk assessment group, and we also have microbiologists. And the idea is to all look at these sort of natural treatment options from all different areas to come up with kind of guidelines to improve their treatment. So we have 17 partners on the project, including a whole slew of industrial partners that are providing a large amount of cash contribution and in-kind support. There's also 4 major universities, so Griffith University, University of Sunshine Coast, Central Queensland University, and Darwin University. And we're all working closely together with the main hub being here at Smartwater, but also aspects of the work spread across the different campuses. So the project's funded by the Australian Water Recycling Centre of Excellence and also the Queensland Government Smart Futures Fund, as well as 17 industrial partners providing in-kind and cash support. The overall aim is to improve maturation ponds for domestic wastewater treatment. They provide a really cost-effective strategy for treatment. So if we can figure out what aspects, optimize treatment efficiency for all sorts of different things, from removing microbes and pathogens which can cause human health effects, to treating for ecotoxicological effects in wildlife. The project's largely based around the hydrodynamic modeling team with different aspects, the microbial information, so what microbes are entering and what are leaving the ponds, what pathogens are entering and leaving, as well as the physical and water chemical characteristics of the ponds. Those all feed into the model, and that works to give us an idea of which variables are the most important for treating the wastewater. So some of the key outputs that we're trying to produce will be a usable model that can be applied by industry for understanding wastewater treatment at specific ponds. We also would like to produce a database an extensive database about what ponds are being used throughout Australia and the different characteristics of those. And this can be used directly by industry and government for regulatory reasons. We're also developing information on human health risks associated with pond use, with the ultimate goal of being able to take water from these sort of simple wastewater treatment strategies and reuse those, so recycle the water for things like agriculture, dust suppression, or a number of other reasons. Another really important goal is to produce training opportunities, so specific courses at multiple levels, from short courses with certificates to be produced, as well as actual university components for degree programs. So things that scale from student level education as well as specific needs of industry that can come and take training. Being at Smartwater is great. There's such a diverse group of water professionals. The experience of the workers and also the equipment available really just make it a fantastic place. I've worked in laboratories across the world now, and Smartwater's one of the top for getting things done. So.